The transport ship descended through the clouds of Arcturus Prime, and Jiwoo pressed her face against the window. Below her, the Galactic Combat Academy stretched across the valley like a massive fortress. Silver towers reached toward the sky, and training fields sprawled in every direction. She had traveled 3 months through space to get here, leaving Earth behind for the first time in her 19 years. The Academy was the most famous military school in the known universe. Warriors from hundreds of different species came here to learn combat. Only the best graduates would join the elite forces that protected the galaxy. Earth had just joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago, and humans were still new to everyone else. Jiwoo picked up her single bag and followed the other cadets off the ship. She was immediately struck by how small she felt. The other species towered over her. A group of Crithians walked past, each one at least 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and muscles that looked like they could break steel. Their footsteps made the ground shake. Near the entrance, a cluster of vraks stood talking in their hissing language. They looked like giant lizards standing on 2 legs with scales that shimmered green and gold in the sunlight. Their eyes were cold and calculating, watching everything around them. First time seeing real aliens? A voice spoke in Korean beside her. Jiwoo turned to see another human girl, shorter than her with bright eyes and a wide smile. She wore the same gray cadet uniform that Jiwoo had been given. "I'm Hyuni," the girl said. "I got here yesterday. You must be from the second group." "Jiwoo," she replied quietly. "Isn't this amazing?" Hyuni gestured at everything around them. "I mean, look at them. Actual aliens. And we're going to train with them." Jiwoo nodded but said nothing more. She was too busy watching. A group of Mentari, the insect warriors, moved past in perfect formation. Their blade-like arms caught the light and their compound eyes seemed to see in all directions at once. The orientation hall was enormous. Thousands of cadets from dozens of species filled the seats. Jiwoo found a spot near the back and sat down. Hyuni sat beside her, still talking excitedly about everything she had seen so far. A massive figure stepped onto the stage, and the hall fell silent. Commander Thalvex was a Vrax, his scales covered in old battle scars. One of his eyes was milky white, blind from some ancient fight. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire hall without any speaker system. "Welcome to the Galactic Combat Academy," he began. "You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. But potential means nothing here. Only skill matters. Only strength. Only the will to survive." He paced across the stage, his tail swishing behind him. "Many of you will fail. Some of you will be injured. A few of you will die. This is not a school for the weak. This is where we forge warriors." His scarred eye seemed to find Jiwoo in the crowd. "We have new species joining us this cycle, humans." He said the word like it tasted strange. "Your species is small, fragile. You have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. I do not understand why the Federation accepted you. But you are here now. Try not to die too quickly." Some of the alien cadets laughed. Jiwoo kept her face neutral, but she felt Hyuni tense beside her. The next few days were a blur of activity. Jiwoo was assigned to Combat Class 7, one of 40 combat groups in her year. Each class had about 50 cadets from various species. She shared a small room with Hyuni in the human quarters. On the first day of training, Jiwoo entered the combat hall and immediately moved to a seat in the back corner. She pulled out a small notebook and a pen, items from Earth that seemed primitive compared to the holographic tablets everyone else used. The instructor, a Crithian named Vector, stood at the front. He was even larger than the other Crithians Jiwoo had seen, with scars crisscrossing his chest and arms. His eyes were dark and intense. "Combat is not about honor," Vector said, his voice like grinding stones. "Combat is about survival. The warrior who lives is the warrior who wins. Nothing else matters." He began demonstrating techniques, moving with surprising speed for someone so large. His strikes could shatter concrete. His blocks could stop a charging vehicle. The other cadets watched in awe. Jiwoo watched too, but differently. She wrote in her notebook, sketching quick drawings of his stance, his weight distribution, the way he shifted his feet. She noted which arm he favored, how he turned his body, where his eyes looked before he struck. "You there." Vector's voice cut through the hall. "Human girl in the back." Jiwoo looked up. "Why are you not paying attention?" "I am paying attention," Jiwoo said quietly. "Then what did I just demonstrate?" A Crithian Battle Strike, Variation 3. You shifted your weight to your left leg first, then drove through with your right arm. Your left arm pulled back to generate more power. Your eyes focused on the target's center mass before the strike. The hall went silent. Vector stared at her for a long moment. Correct. But knowing is not doing. We will see if you survive actual training. Physical training began the next day. The cadets ran through obstacle courses designed for bodies much larger and stronger than human ones. Jiwoo struggled but finished in the middle of the pack. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she was consistent. In sparring exercises, she was paired with a smaller Mentari. The insect warrior moved with blinding speed, but Jiwoo watched his patterns. She blocked more than she attacked, studying his rhythm. The match ended in a draw. Why didn't you attack more? Hyuni asked afterward as they walked back to their quarters. You could have won. Maybe, Jiwoo said. But I learned more by watching. Weeks passed. Jiwoo never spoke in class unless directly questioned. She sat in the back, wrote in her notebook, and watched everything. The other cadets began to ignore her. She was just another human, small and unremarkable, barely worth noticing. But Vector noticed. The champion of the academy, undefeated in the last 2 combat tournaments, sometimes caught the human girl watching him during demonstrations. Her eyes were always calm, always focused. She never looked away when he stared back. One evening, Commander Thalvex made an announcement that changed everything. In 3 weeks, we will hold the Apex trial. This is a combat tournament where you will face each other in ranked matches. The winner becomes the Apex warrior and is guaranteed placement in the elite units. Excitement rippled through the cadets. The Apex trial was legendary. Winners became famous across the galaxy. Vector has won the last 2 cycles, Thalvex continued. No opponent has lasted more than 30 seconds against him. If you wish to prove yourself, here is your chance. A roster appeared on the wall where cadets could add their names. Dozens rushed forward to sign up. Jiwoo waited until the crowd cleared, then walked up and quietly wrote her name. A Vrax cadet saw her and laughed. The silent human wants to fight? You'll be lucky to survive the first round. Jiwoo said nothing. She returned to her seat and opened her notebook. She had been writing in it every day, filling page after page with observations, fighting styles, movement patterns, weaknesses, strengths. She had notes on every major species, every common technique, every instructor's preferences. Hyuni sat down beside her, worry clear on her face. Are you sure about this? The Apex trial is dangerous. Cadets have died. I know, Jiwoo said. Then why? Jiwoo looked at her notebook, at the hundreds of hours of observation condensed into these pages. Because I came here to learn, and the best way to learn is to test yourself. That night, alone in the empty training hall, Jiwoo stood in the center of the combat ring. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly, remembering her grandfather's words from years ago on Earth. A fight is won before it begins, he had told her. Watch your opponent. Learn their rhythm. Every warrior has a pattern. Find the pattern and you find the weakness. She opened her eyes and looked at the empty hall. In 3 weeks, this place would be filled with thousands of spectators. In 3 weeks, she would face warriors who were stronger, faster, and more experienced than her. But she had something they didn't have. She had patience. She had observation. And she had been preparing for this moment since the day she arrived. Jiwoo walked out of the hall without looking back. The tournament brackets would be posted tomorrow, and then everyone would see what the silent human girl could do. The tournament brackets appeared on the main display screen in the academy courtyard. Hundreds of cadets crowded around to see where they were placed. Jiwoo stood at the edge of the crowd, waiting patiently for her turn to look. She was seated in the lower half of the bracket. Her first opponent was listed as Drix, a mid-level Mentari warrior. Around her, she heard cadets discussing the matchups. The human girl got lucky, one Vrax said. Drix isn't top tier. She might last a whole minute. A minute? Another laughed. I give her 30 seconds. Mentari are too fast for humans. Jiwoo walked away from the crowd. She had seen what she needed to see. She returned to her quarters and opened her notebook to the section on Mentari fighting styles. She had been watching Drix for weeks, noting his patterns during training sessions. Hyuni burst into the room, her face pale. Did you see the brackets? You're fighting Drix. He's brutal, Jiwoo. Last year he sent 3 cadets to the medical bay. I know, Jiwoo said calmly, still reading her notes. How can you be so calm? Hyune sat on her bed, wringing her hands. These aren't practice matches. The safety protocols are minimal. You could get seriously hurt. Jiwoo closed her notebook and looked at her friend. I appreciate your concern. But I know what I'm doing. Do you? Hyune's voice rose. Because everyone thinks you're going to get destroyed. The betting pools have you at 50-1 odds just to reach the quarterfinals. Good, Jiwoo said. Let them think that. Across the academy, another human cadet was making very different waves. Taejin was loud, confident, and aggressive. He had advanced through his preliminary matches by overwhelming his opponents with raw ferocity. Where Jiwoo was silent and observant, Taejin was all action and noise. Humans are warriors, he shouted after winning his third match. We might be small, but we fight like demons. The alien cadets didn't know what to make of him. Some respected his courage. Others thought he was foolish. But everyone noticed him, which was exactly what Taejin wanted. In the medical center, Dr. Kyungmi, one of the few human doctors at the academy, reviewed injury reports from the preliminary rounds. She saw Jiwoo's name on the upcoming match roster and called her in for a consultation. I wanted to talk to you about armor options, Dr. Kyungmi said, pulling up holographic displays of various protective gear. The academy offers enhanced combat suits that can absorb significant damage. I strongly recommend— No thank you, Jiwoo interrupted politely. Dr. Kyungmi frowned. Jiwoo, I've seen what Mentari blades can do to unprotected flesh. At least take the reinforced chest plate. Heavy armor will slow me down, Jiwoo explained. I need to move freely. You need to survive, the doctor countered. I will. Jiwoo's voice was quiet but certain. Trust me. The day of her first match arrived. The arena was a circular platform 50 meters wide, surrounded by energy barriers that kept spectators safe, while allowing them to see everything. Seats rose up in tiers around the platform, and today they were packed with cadets eager to see the tournament matches. Jiwoo entered the arena wearing only light combat gear, a simple gray uniform with minimal padding. She carried no weapons. The Apex trial rules allowed weapons, but she had chosen to fight without them. Across the platform, Drix entered to cheers from the Mantarii section. He was 6 feet tall with a sleek exoskeleton that gleamed like polished metal. His forearms ended in blade-like appendages that could cut through steel. His compound eyes fixed on Jiwoo, analyzing her. The referee, a neutral Vrax official, stood between them. Standard Apex trial rules. Fight until submission, incapacitation, or death. Medical teams are standing by. Fighters ready? Drix's blades clicked together in acknowledgement. Jiwoo simply nodded. Begin! Drix moved instantly, closing the distance between them in a blur of speed. His blades came at Jiwoo from 4 different angles simultaneously, a killing technique that had ended many fights in seconds. Jiwoo moved. She didn't retreat. She didn't try to block. She simply shifted her body, and the blades passed by her, missing by millimeters. The crowd gasped. Drix attacked again, faster this time, adding feints and deceptive movements. Jiwoo's feet glided across the platform like she was dancing. Every strike missed. Every blade cut only air. She's just running, someone in the crowd shouted. But Commander Thalvex, watching from the instructor's box, saw something different. His scarred eye narrowed. No, she's learning his rhythm. For 15 seconds, Drix attacked relentlessly while Jiwoo dodged. The Mantari warrior was fast, but his attacks followed a pattern. High, low, high, middle, repeat. His weight shifted to his left side before each major strike. His compound eyes looked at his target point a fraction of a second before his blades moved. Jiwoo saw all of it. Then she moved forward. Drix's left blade came at her head. She ducked under it and stepped inside his range, where his long arms couldn't angle properly. Her hand shot out, striking a specific point on his thorax where his exoskeleton plates met, a nerve cluster she had noted in her observations. Drix's entire body locked up. His blades froze mid-swing. Jiwoo followed with a sweep to his legs and a palm strike to his center of mass. The Mantari warrior crashed to the platform, his limbs twitching but unable to respond. The nerve strike had temporarily paralyzed him. The arena fell completely silent. The referee checked Drix, then raised his hand. Winner, Jiwoo of Earth. Time, 23 seconds. The silence continued for another moment. Then the crowd erupted in confused chatter. What had they just seen? The human girl had moved so economically, so precisely that it almost looked easy. Jiwoo walked to where Drix was slowly regaining control of his limbs. She offered her hand to help him up. The Mentari warrior stared at the hand in confusion, then took it. As he rose, he clicked his mandibles in what his species used as a gesture of respect. "You are skilled," he said in the common galactic language. "I did not expect this." "You fought well," Jiwoo replied, then turned and left the arena. In her quarters that evening, Hyune was practically bouncing with excitement. "That was incredible. Did you see their faces? No one expected that." Jiwoo was already reviewing footage of her next opponent on her datapad. "It was one match." "One match? Jiwoo, you just beat a mid-tier Mentari in under 30 seconds. The betting pools are going crazy. People are actually starting to put money on you now." "Doesn't matter," Jiwoo said, studying the footage. "My next match is in 2 days." She advanced through 2 more rounds with similar efficiency. Her second opponent was a young Vrax who relied on strength and aggression. Jiwoo used his momentum against him, redirecting his charges until he exhausted himself, then struck at vulnerable points in his scale armor. Match time 27 seconds. Her third opponent was a Crithian female who fought with disciplined technique. This match lasted longer, nearly a full minute, because the Crithian adapted her tactics mid-fight. But Jiwoo had been watching Crithian fighters for weeks. She knew their preferred stances, their common combinations, their tells. When the Crithian attempted her finishing move, Jiwoo was already moving to counter it. Match time 58 seconds. Now Jiwoo was in the semifinals, and the entire academy was talking about her. The silent human girl who fought like a ghost, ending matches before her opponents realized what had happened. Commander Thalvex had started reviewing all of Jiwoo's training footage from the past weeks. What he saw amazed him. The human girl had been studying everyone. She sat in the back of class not because she was shy or afraid, but because from that position she could see everything. Her notebook wasn't just notes. It was a detailed analysis of every fighting style in the academy. "She's been preparing for this since she arrived," Thalvex said to his assistant. "Every day, every class, she was gathering information, learning, analyzing." In the champions box, Vector watched footage of Jiwoo's matches on repeat. The undefeated Apex warrior, who had crushed every opponent for 2 years, leaned forward in his seat. His dark eyes tracked every movement the human girl made. For the first time in a long time, Vector felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear. He was too experienced for that. But uncertainty. This small human who never spoke in class, who seemed so unremarkable during training, was dismantling skilled warriors with surgical precision. The semi-final bracket was posted. Jiwoo's next opponent was Skarnex, a Vrax heavy fighter known for his impenetrable scales and crushing strength. He had won his matches by simply tanking his opponent's attacks and overwhelming them with raw power. He was the favorite to face Vector in the finals. The betting odds shifted again. Some cadets were now placing significant money on the silent human. Others thought she had just been lucky so far, and that Skarnex's durability would be too much for her. Jiwoo spent the night before the match in the empty training hall again. She stood in the center of the combat ring, eyes closed, breathing slowly. In her mind, she reviewed everything she knew about Vrax physiology, about Skarnex's fighting style, about the way his scales interlocked. Every warrior had a weakness. Every armor had gaps. Every pattern could be broken. She just needed to see it. The arena was packed for the semifinals. Word had spread across the entire academy about the silent human girl who was defeating skilled warriors with ease. Even cadets from other combat classes had come to watch. The stands were a sea of different species, all curious to see if the human could continue her strange winning streak. Jiwoo entered the arena to a mixture of cheers and skeptical murmurs. She had become something of a phenomenon. Half the academy wanted to see her succeed, while the other half waited for her to finally fail. She walked to her position with the same calm expression she always wore, as if this were just another training session. Skarnex entered from the opposite side, and the platform shook under his weight. He was massive even for a Vrax, standing over 7 feet tall with scales that looked like polished green armor. His arms were thick as tree trunks and his tail could smash concrete. He had a reputation for being nearly invulnerable. In his last match, his opponent had landed 30 clean strikes without doing any significant damage. The Vrax warrior looked across the platform at Jiwoo and let out a deep, rumbling roar that echoed through the arena. It was meant to intimidate. to make his opponent afraid before the fight even started. Jiwoo's expression didn't change. Her eyes remained calm, focused. She simply watched him, the same way she had watched everyone for weeks. This seemed to irritate Skarnex more than if she had shown fear. He growled and flexed his claws, making gouges in the platform surface. The referee stepped between them. "Fighters ready?" Skarnex roared again. Jiwoo nodded once. "Begin!" Skarnex charged immediately, using the same tactic that had won him every previous match. He came at Jiwoo like a battering ram, claws extended, intending to grab her and crush her in his grip. The crowd held its breath. There was nowhere to dodge. Skarnex was too wide, moving too fast. Jiwoo would be caught. But she didn't dodge. Instead, at the last possible moment, she dropped low and rolled forward, directly under his charge. Skarnex's momentum carried him past her. He tried to stop, his claws digging into the platform, but his own weight and speed worked against him. Jiwoo was already moving. She came up behind him and struck at the back of his knee joint, not with full force, but with precise pressure at the exact point where his scales had a tiny gap to allow movement. Skarnex stumbled but didn't fall. His scales had protected him from real damage, but the strike had disrupted his balance. He spun around, more cautious now, circling her. "You're fast, little human," he hissed. "But speed won't save you. My scales are unbreakable. You cannot hurt me." Jiwoo said nothing. She simply watched, her feet moving in small steps, maintaining distance. Skarnex attacked again, this time with more control. He threw powerful strikes, each one capable of breaking bones. Jiwoo didn't try to block, she redirected. When his right claw came at her face, she moved her head just enough to let it pass by, then pushed his arm slightly, using his own momentum to throw him off balance. This happened again and again. Skarnex would attack and Jiwoo would redirect, never meeting his strength directly, always using his power against him. "Fight me," Skarnex roared, frustrated. "Stop running!" But Commander Thalvex, watching from the instructor's box, understood what was happening. She's not running. She's making him work. Wearing him down, it was true. Skarnex was strong and well-armored, but that armor was heavy. Every missed strike, every redirected attack cost him energy. After 2 minutes of constant aggression, his movements were becoming slightly slower. His breathing was heavier. Jiwoo, meanwhile, moved with the same economy of motion she had shown in every fight. She never wasted energy on unnecessary movements. Every step had purpose. Every dodge was minimal, just enough to avoid the attack. Skarnex realized he was being worn down and changed tactics. Instead of chasing Jiwoo, he planted himself in the center of the platform and waited, trying to conserve energy. "Come to me, human," he growled. "Let's see if you can actually hurt me," the crowd murmured. This was smart tactics from Skarnex. If Jiwoo wanted to win, she would have to engage directly and his scales would protect him. Jiwoo stopped moving. She stood 10 feet away from Skarnex, studying him. Her eyes traced the pattern of his scales, the way they overlapped, the places where they had to separate to allow joint movement. Then she moved forward, not fast, not charging. She walked toward him calmly, deliberately. Skarnex grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Finally. He prepared to grab her the moment she came within range. Jiwoo entered his range and his massive hands shot out to seize her, but she was already moving, dropping low again, this time striking at his knee joint with more force, the same spot she had hit before. Skarnex grunted but stayed standing. His scales had protected him. He swung his tail around, trying to sweep Jiwoo's legs. She jumped over the tail and landed inside his guard. Her hands moved in quick succession, 3 precise strikes to 3 different points on his body. The gaps between his scales, the vulnerable spots. Individually, none of the strikes would have done much damage. But together, in rapid succession, hitting the exact same vulnerable points, they had an effect. Skarnex's right leg buckled slightly. One of the strikes had numbed the nerve cluster behind his knee. He shifted his weight to compensate, which was exactly what Jiwoo had anticipated. She struck again at his weight-bearing left knee, this time with a powerful kick that targeted the already stressed joint. The massive Vrax warrior went down on one knee, his balance finally broken. The crowd gasped. No one had seen Skarnex taken off his feet before. Jiwoo didn't hesitate. She moved behind him and delivered a precise strike to the base of his skull, right where the scales were thinnest to allow neck movement. Not hard enough to cause serious injury, but hard enough to stun him. Skarnex collapsed forward, trying to rise, but his legs wouldn't respond properly. The nerve strikes had disrupted his motor control. The referee checked him, then raised his hand. Winner, Ji-woo of Earth. Time, 19 seconds of actual engagement. This time the arena didn't just erupt, it exploded with noise. Cadets from every species were on their feet, cheering or arguing or simply staring in disbelief. The silent human girl had just defeated the seemingly invincible Skarnex. Ji-woo walked over to where Skarnex was slowly recovering. She offered her hand again, the same gesture she had made to Drix. Skarnex looked at the hand, then at her face. "How?" he asked. "My scales. You should not have been able to hurt me." "Your scales are strong," Ji-woo said quietly, "but they have to have gaps at the joints. Every armor has weaknesses. I just had to find them." The Vrax warrior took her hand and pulled himself up. He nodded slowly. "You fight with wisdom, not just strength. That is unusual." After the match, Ji-woo was surrounded by reporters and curious cadets, but she politely declined to give interviews. She simply returned to her quarters. Hyune was waiting along with several other human cadets, including Taejin. "That was amazing," Taejin said, his usual loud confidence subdued by genuine respect. "I've been winning my matches by being aggressive, but you make it look like art." "Different styles work for different people," Ji-woo said. She was tired, though she didn't show it. The match with Skarnex had required intense focus. "The finals are tomorrow," Hyune said quietly. "You're fighting Vector." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about Vector. The Krithian champion had never been defeated. He had won 47 consecutive matches. Most of his opponents lasted less than 30 seconds. Some lasted only 10. "Are you worried?" Taejin asked. Ji-woo thought about the question. "Worried? No, focused. Yes, Vector is different from everyone I've fought so far." "How?" Hyune asked. "He adapts," Ji-woo explained. "I've been watching him for weeks. Every opponent tries different tactics against him, and he learns during the fight. By the time they realize their approach isn't working, he's already adjusted to counter it." "So what will you do?" Taejin leaned forward, genuinely curious. "I don't know yet," Ji-woo admitted. "I need to think." Later that night, Commander Thalvex found Ji-woo in the empty training hall as he had expected. She was standing in the center of the combat ring, eyes closed, breathing slowly. "You've surprised everyone," Thalvex said, his voice echoing in the empty space. Ji-woo opened her eyes. "Commander, where did you learn to fight like this?" He moved closer, his scarred face curious. "This is not standard human military training." "My grandfather," Ji-woo said. "He taught me traditional martial arts on Earth. But more than techniques, he taught me to observe. To understand that every warrior has patterns, rhythms. If you can see the pattern, you can break it." Thalvex nodded slowly. "And you've been watching us all? Since the day you arrived. Every class, every training session, you were gathering information." "Yes." "Why didn't you speak up in class? Why hide your abilities?" "I wasn't hiding," Ji-woo said. "I was learning. You can't learn if you're talking. You can't observe if you're being observed." The old Vrax commander let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "Wise words. But tomorrow you face Vector. He has been watching you too, studying your matches. He will not be surprised like the others." "I know. And yet you don't seem afraid." Ji-woo looked at the center of the ring, where tomorrow she would face the greatest warrior in the academy. "Fear is just another pattern, Commander. Another rhythm to break. My grandfather taught me that the moment you give in to fear, you've already lost." Thalvex studied her for a long moment. "Your species is strange. Small, fragile bodies. No natural weapons. But your mind," he tapped his scarred head. "Your minds are your weapons. Tomorrow we will see if that is enough." After he left, Ji-woo remained in the training hall for another hour. She moved through forms, practicing techniques, but mostly she thought. Vector was unlike any opponent she had faced. He was skilled, experienced, and he never made the same mistake twice. But everyone had patterns. Everyone had rhythms. She just needed to find his. Tomorrow the entire galaxy would be watching. The day of the finals dawned clear and bright over Arcturus Prime. The entire academy felt different. There was electricity in the air. Anticipation. This wasn't just another tournament match. This was history being made. Ji-woo woke early, as she always did. She went through her morning routine calmly, ate a simple breakfast, and reviewed her notes one last time. Her notebook was filled with observations about Vector, pages and pages of details about how he moved, how he fought, how he thought. Hyune was too nervous to eat. How are you so calm? She asked, watching Jiwoo quietly prepare. Being nervous won't help me fight better, Jiwoo said simply. So there's no point in being nervous. That's very logical. And completely unhelpful. Yone tried to smile. Promise me you'll be careful. Vector is. He's on a different level from everyone else. I know. Jiwoo closed her notebook. That's why I came here. To test myself against the best. Outside, the academy was transforming. The grand arena, which was used only for the most important events, was being opened for the finals. It was 3 times larger than the regular combat arena, with seats rising up in massive tiers that could hold 10,000 spectators. By mid-morning, ships were arriving from across the sector. High-ranking military officials wanted to see the finals. Diplomats from various worlds came to watch. Representatives from Earth arrived as well, including Admiral Jae-sung, the senior human officer in the Galactic Federation military. The admiral met with Jiwoo before the match. He was a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen countless battles. The whole galaxy is watching today, he told her. Not just this academy. News of your victories has spread. Humans are still new to the Federation. Many species doubt our place here. Today you carry more than just your own honor. Jiwoo listened respectfully, but her expression didn't change. I understand, Admiral, but I can only fight my fight. Whatever happens, I will do my best. Admiral Jae-sung studied her for a moment, then nodded. That's all any warrior can do. Good luck, Cadet Jiwoo. In another part of the academy, Vector was preparing in his own way. The Krithian champion sat alone in his quarters, watching footage of Jiwoo's matches for the 20th time. He had studied her more intensely than any opponent he had ever faced. She was remarkable, small, seemingly fragile, but she moved with perfect efficiency. No wasted motion. No unnecessary risks. She found weaknesses that others didn't see and exploited them with surgical precision. But Vector had weaknesses too, and he knew Jiwoo would have found them. She had been watching him for weeks, just as he was now watching her. This would not be like his other fights. This would be a true test. For the first time in 2 years, Vector felt genuine excitement about a match. The grand arena filled rapidly. Cadets from all combat classes claimed seats early. The instructor section was packed with legendary warriors, all curious to see this unusual final. The noise level rose as more spectators arrived, creating a rumble like distant thunder. Jiwoo entered through the fighter's tunnel and stepped onto the massive platform. The arena was so large that the opposite side seemed far away. The energy barriers shimmered around the platform's edge, and above, holographic displays showed her image to every section of the stands. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered. Jiwoo had gained many supporters during her run through the tournament. Others remained skeptical, waiting to see the small human finally defeated. Then Vector entered. The arena erupted. The Krithian champion was beloved, feared, and respected in equal measure. He was wearing his traditional combat gear, minimal armor that showed his battle scars, marking him as a veteran of countless fights. He was enormous, towering over 8 feet tall with muscles that looked carved from stone. He walked to his position and performed the Krithian war display, a series of movements meant to show strength and dominance. He roared, a sound that shook the air. He beat his chest, the impact like thunder. He stomped the platform hard enough to crack it. It was terrifying and magnificent. When he finished, the crowd was screaming his name. Vector! 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 Then Jiwoo did something unexpected. She bowed. Not a casual nod, but a deep, formal bow. The kind her grandfather had taught her. The kind that showed true respect for an opponent. In the silence that followed Vector's display, her small gesture seemed to fill the entire arena. The crowd went quiet, confused. Apex warriors didn't bow to each other. They intimidated. They postured. They showed dominance. But Jiwoo was different. Vector stared at her, surprise clear on his face. Then slowly he returned the bow with a small nod of his head. The crowd roared again, but this time with a different tone. This wasn't just going to be a fight. This was going to be something special. The referee, a senior Vrax commander, stepped between them. This is the Apex trial final. Standard rules apply. The match ends with submission, incapacitation, or death. Are both fighters ready? Yes, Vector said, his deep voice carrying easily. Yes, Jiwoo said quietly. The referee raised his hand. The entire arena held its breath. Begin! Vector moved immediately, but not with the wild charge that many fighters used. He came forward with controlled power, testing Jiwoo's reactions. His first strike was fast but measured, a straight punch aimed at her center mass. Jiwoo sidestepped it with minimal movement. The punch passed by her, missing by inches. Vector immediately followed with a second strike, then a third, building a rhythm. Each strike was placed carefully, designed to force Jiwoo into a pattern of responses. But Jiwoo recognized what he was doing. He was studying her just as she had studied others. She changed her movement pattern, making her dodges less predictable. For 30 seconds they exchanged like this, Vector attacking with increasing speed and power, Jiwoo evading and occasionally blocking, never committing to a counterattack. The crowd was mesmerized. They had expected Vector to dominate quickly, as he always did. Instead, this was something different. This was two master fighters testing each other, looking for openings. She's learning his rhythm, Commander Thalvex observed from the instructor's box. But he's learning hers too, another instructor replied. Vector suddenly increased his speed, throwing a combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed most fighters. But Jiwoo had been watching Krithians for weeks. She knew their preferred combinations, their common sequences. She didn't just dodge. She moved into the gaps between his strikes, getting inside his range where his long arms couldn't generate full power. She struck at his ribs, a quick, precise blow. Vector grunted but didn't slow. He pivoted and swept low, trying to take out her legs. Jiwoo jumped over the sweep and landed lightly. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Then Vector spoke, his voice carrying across the arena even during the fight. You're skilled. Very skilled. But skill alone won't defeat strength. Jiwoo responded, speaking for the first time in the match. You're fast for your size, impressive. Vector's eyes widened slightly. The small human had just complimented him in the middle of their fight. It was so unexpected that for a fraction of a second he hesitated. Jiwoo used that fraction of a second. She moved forward and struck at his knee joint, then his elbow, then his shoulder. 3 quick strikes to 3 different points. Vector blocked 2 of them, but the third landed. Not enough to cause real damage, but enough to show that she could hit him when she wanted to. He stepped back, reassessing. This human was unlike anyone he had fought. She was studying him in real time, adapting to his style even as they fought. Let's see what you can really do, Vector said, and his entire demeanor changed. Before he had been testing, probing. Now he became serious. His attacks came faster, harder, with no wasted motion. He used techniques from multiple fighting styles, mixing Krithian power with moves he had learned from other species. High strike, low strike, feint, real strike, all flowing together. Jiwoo was forced to fully defensive mode. She blocked, dodged, and redirected, but there was no time to counterattack. Vector was pressing her hard. The crowd was on its feet. This was the Vector they knew, the unstoppable force, the apex warrior. 1 minute passed. Jiwoo was still fighting, still defending. This was already longer than most of Vector's matches. 2 minutes. Jiwoo had taken a few hits now. Nothing serious, but her lip was bleeding. Vector had cracks in his armor from where her precise strikes had landed. 3 minutes. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. No one had lasted this long against Vector. And Jiwoo wasn't just surviving, she was still fighting back, still looking for openings. Both fighters were breathing hard now. This was becoming a true battle of endurance and will. Vector realized that his usual tactics wouldn't work. His human-studied patterns broke rhythms, so he would do something she couldn't have observed before, something he had never used in the academy. He began to spin, building momentum, his arms extended. It was the Krithian death spiral, a technique so dangerous that it was usually forbidden in training. His massive body became a whirlwind of devastating power. The crowd gasped. Several instructors stood up in alarm. This technique had killed opponents before. Jiwoo saw it coming. She had read about this technique in her research on Krithian fighting styles, though she had never seen Vector use it. Every instinct told her to retreat to get away from that spinning death. But Jiwoo did the opposite. She stepped forward, moving directly into the spiral. The entire arena seemed to hold its breath. Everything went into slow motion. Time seemed to stretch as Jiwoo moved forward into Vector's death spiral. To the crowd, it looked like suicide, walking directly into a whirlwind of devastating strikes. But Jiwoo had understood something that others hadn't. The death spiral was powerful at the outer edge, where Vector's arms had full extension and maximum speed. But at the center, In the eye of the storm, there was a moment of vulnerability. A single instant where his momentum carried him past his center point, where he couldn't adjust quickly enough. Jiwoo stepped inside that gap. Vector's arms swept past her, missing by inches. She was inside his guard, in the one place his technique couldn't reach, and she had studied Krithian anatomy for weeks. She knew exactly where to strike. Behind the jaw, just below the ear, there was a nerve cluster. All Krithians had it. It was deeply protected during normal movement. But when Vector committed to the death spiral when he extended fully, that spot became briefly exposed. Jiwoo's hand shot out, fast and precise. Her strike landed perfectly on that nerve cluster. Vector's entire body seized. The death spiral stopped instantly. His eyes went wide with shock, not pain, but complete surprise. His legs locked for a fraction of a second. That was all the time Jiwoo needed. She swept his weight-bearing leg, the one that was planted to support his spinning momentum. Already off balance from the nerve strike, Vector couldn't recover. His massive body tilted. Jiwoo followed with a palm strike to his chest, adding her force to his falling momentum. The apex warrior, undefeated for 2 years, crashed to the platform. The arena was absolutely silent. 10,000 beings held their breath. Vector tried to rise immediately, his warrior instincts overriding everything else. But his body wouldn't respond properly. The nerve strike had temporarily disrupted his motor control. His arms shook. His legs wouldn't support his weight. Jiwoo stood over him, her hand raised for another strike if needed. But she didn't attack a fallen opponent. She waited. The referee rushed forward, checking Vector. The Krithian champion tried again to rise, but collapsed. He wasn't unconscious, but he couldn't continue fighting. The referee raised his hand toward Jiwoo. Winner, Jiwoo of Earth, new apex warrior. For one more moment, the silence continued. Then the arena exploded. The noise was deafening. Cadets from every species were on their feet, screaming, cheering, or simply standing in shocked disbelief. The human girl had done the impossible. She had defeated Vector, but Jiwoo barely heard the noise. She looked down at Vector, who was slowly regaining control of his body. She did what she had done for every opponent. She extended her hand. Vector stared at that hand. He had never been defeated. He had never needed help to stand. In his culture, accepting help after a loss was seen as accepting weakness. But something about the small human standing there, her hand outstretched without mockery or pity, just simple respect, something about that changed his thinking. He took her hand. Jiwoo helped pull him to his feet. It was awkward. He outweighed her by at least 200 pounds, but together they managed it. As Vector stood, breathing hard, he looked down at Jiwoo. Blood dripped from her split lip. Bruises were forming on her arms where his strikes had landed. She had taken damage in the fight. But her eyes were still calm, still focused. "You are Apex," Vector said clearly, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "You have earned this." The crowd's cheering intensified. This was sportsmanship rarely seen in the brutal Apex trials. The award ceremony was held immediately after. Commander Thalvex stood at the center of the platform, and the entire arena quieted to hear him speak. "Today we have witnessed something extraordinary," Thalvex began. "We have seen a warrior who does not rely on size or strength or natural weapons. We have seen the power of observation, patience, and precision." He gestured to Jiwoo. "Many of us doubted that humans belonged in the Galactic Federation military. We saw their small size and fragile bodies and assumed they would be weak. But today Jiwoo has taught us a lesson. The apex predator is not always the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes it is the most intelligent, the most adaptable." The crowd roared in agreement. Thalvex placed the Apex Warrior medal around Jiwoo's neck, a simple but prestigious symbol that she had won the tournament. "You have earned placement in any elite unit you choose. But more than that, you have earned the respect of every warrior here." Jiwoo bowed to the crowd, the same respectful bow she had given Vector. The gesture was becoming her signature, humble, respectful, honorable. Admiral Jae Sung approached her after the ceremony, pride evident on his stern face. "You've done more for Earth's reputation today than 1,000 diplomatic meetings could have accomplished." "Well done, Cadet." "Thank you, Admiral," Jiwoo said quietly. "But I only did what I was trained to do." "Your grandfather taught you well." Jiwoo nodded. He taught me to see, to understand. He always said that fighting wasn't about proving you're the strongest. It's about understanding your opponent better than they understand themselves. Later, as the crowds dispersed and the arena began to empty, Vector found Jiwoo sitting alone in the lower stands, looking out at the combat platform. "May I join you?" he asked. "Of course," Jiwoo said. The huge Krithian sat down beside her, the bench creaking under his weight. For a moment neither spoke. "I have been Apex Warrior for 2 years," Vector finally said. "I defeated everyone who challenged me. I began to think I was unbeatable, that no one could surprise me anymore." "Everyone can be beaten," Jiwoo said. "Even me. I was just fortunate today." "No." Vector shook his head. "It wasn't fortune. You studied me. You found my weakness, the nerve cluster behind the jaw. I didn't even know that was vulnerable until you struck it." "Everybody has weaknesses," Jiwoo explained. "Every fighting style has gaps. My grandfather taught me that the first step to victory is understanding. You were a brilliant opponent because you also adapt and learn. If we fought again tomorrow, you would know to protect that weak point, and I would need to find another approach." Vector was quiet for a moment. "You know what the strangest part is? I'm not angry about losing. I'm excited. For the first time in years, I feel like I can grow again as a warrior. You've shown me that I still have much to learn." He stood up and offered his hand, the same gesture Jiwoo had offered him. "I would be honored to fight beside you one day, Jiwoo of Earth." She took his hand and stood. "The honor would be mine." "Tell me something," Vector said. "Why did you never speak in class? Why did you stay silent all those weeks?" Jiwoo smiled slightly. "Because everyone underestimated me. They thought I was shy or afraid or not very skilled. But I was actually studying all of them, learning their techniques, their patterns, their weaknesses. If I had spoken up, shown my knowledge, people would have been more guarded. Instead, they ignored me and I learned everything I needed." Vector let out a deep laugh. "You are a clever warrior. Your species is dangerous not because of physical strength but because of your minds. The galaxy should take notice." In the human quarters that evening, Jiwoo's room was filled with celebrating cadets. Yune had organized a small party, and even Taejin had come, bringing food from the academy cafeteria. "So what's next for you?" Taejin asked. "You can join any elite unit now. Special Operations, Fleet Command, Diplomatic Security, they'll all want you." "I haven't decided yet," Jiwoo admitted. "Right now I just want to continue learning. The academy still has much to teach me." "After today, I think you'll be the one teaching," Hyune laughed. "I heard 3 instructors already asking if you'd be interested in becoming an assistant combat instructor." Jiwoo looked surprised. "Really? I'm still a student." "You just defeated the undefeated Apex Warrior," Taejin pointed out. "I think you've earned the right to teach." Later that night, after everyone had left, Jiwoo stood alone on the balcony of her quarters. The academy spread out below her, its towers lit against the night sky. She pulled out her notebook, the same notebook she had been writing in since she arrived. On a new page, she wrote, "Today I learned that winning isn't the end, it's just another beginning. There is always more to learn, always more to understand. Vector taught me that even in defeat he remained honorable. That's the mark of a true warrior. Not someone who never loses, but someone who faces both victory and defeat with dignity." She closed the notebook and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. Her grandfather would be proud, she thought. Not because she won, but because she had stayed true to his teachings. Watch, learn, wait, then act without hesitation. It had worked in the Apex trial, but Jiwoo knew that life would present many more challenges. More opponents, more battles. More moments where she would need to see clearly and act decisively. She was ready. In the months that followed, Jiwoo's victory became legendary across the Galactic Federation. The story spread to every world, how the silent human girl had studied her opponents, found their weaknesses, and defeated the greatest warrior in the academy through intelligence and skill rather than brute force. More humans joined the academy, inspired by her example. They were no longer seen as weak or fragile. They were recognized as a species that brought something unique to the Federation: adaptability, creativity, and the ability to find solutions that others missed. Jiwoo did become an assistant instructor while continuing her own studies. She taught combat classes where she emphasized observation and strategy over raw power. Cadets from all species attended her classes, eager to learn from the apex warrior. And true to his word, Vector became her friend and occasional sparring partner. They pushed each other to grow, always learning, always improving. Years later, when Jiwoo had become one of the most decorated combat instructors in galactic history, she would tell her students the same thing her grandfather had told her. Combat is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about understanding. Every opponent has a story written in how they move, how they fight, how they think. Learn to read that story and you will always know what comes next. That is the true path to victory. And whenever she finished that lesson, she would think of that first day at the academy, sitting in the back of the class, silent and watchful, learning everything she needed to know. The human girl had been silent in combat class, but her actions had spoken louder than any words ever could.